Good evening and welcome to Leadership in the Land of COVID-19. We are very happy to have you and host you here at St. Thomas University today, and we're excited for you to participate in this wonderful event. Before we begin, I'd like to thank a few people that made this event possible. And I'd first like to begin with our leadership team here at St. Thomas University. President Armstrong for having the vision to bring the PDQ together, who worked very closely with Provost Moreland and my law dean, Dean Lawson. They did a wonderful job in helping pulling all of these things together. I'd also like to give a special thank you to our executive director, Mayor Oliver Gilbert, whose leadership is really making this possible and helping the PDQ grow exponentially, as well as my partner in crime, Jose Rocha, who co-chairs the PDQ with me. Last but not least, the people that made this particular event possible: Robin Hoffman, Carlos De Yarza, Jonathan Coleman, the support staff, Dean Dykes, and last but not least, all of you. In terms of registration, we had almost 200 people register between the people that are alive and out there in cyberspace. And lastly, I'd like to give a special shout out to my students in contracts and BA who are attending. These are the future leaders. So I am hopeful that as some of the leaders, before you leave, you have an opportunity to speak with my students and talk to them about being leaders in the future and possibly give them internships or jobs. I'm sure they would appreciate that. Thank you very much. And I would now like to bring up Reverend Rafael Capo, our St. Thomas University Vice President for Mission and Missionary, to give the opening prayer.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious Father, maker of all things, and source of wisdom and goodness, your desire is for our wholeness and well-being. We hold in tenderness and prayer the collective challenges of our world at this time. We grieve precious lives lost and vulnerable lives threatened. We ache for ourselves and our communities standing before the challenges of the future. We pray, may love, not fear, go viral. Make your presence felt to those various persons who have the high responsibility of making decisions that affect the lives and futures of our families, our communities, our city, our nation. Inspire our leaders to discern and choose wisely, align with the common good. We pray that they communicate clearly and truthfully with each other and with the public, and that their messages are crafted with the goal of the safety and welfare of all. May truth, empathy, and mercy be the touchstones of anyone tasked with setting policies for our protection. Help our leaders see the people they govern as valued members of their own families. Give them clear vision as well as hope. And may they, leaders, both elected and appointed, serve as did our Lord Jesus, with true compassion and in your truth. We ask this, as always, as we strive to form global leaders, ethical leaders for our global community. In the name of Jesus, your Son and our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
I'd now like to introduce Mayor Oliver Gilbert, but instead of telling you about his extensive list of accomplishments, I'd like to introduce him with a short story. As Mayor, Oliver and I and Jose, we were in the process of putting all of this stuff together. We kept writing, I kept writing politicians, candidates, the political figures, and I kept writing that. And Mayor Gilbert says, Todd, stop saying that. They're not politicians, they are leaders. Now pause. I'm gonna fast forward. I got an email today from someone from the county, and they were congratulating us on a recent success that we have as through the university and through the PDQ. And the person was saying, with this success, you have a responsibility to make a difference in our community because I'm tired of seeing people die due to COVID. So what are you gonna do? Now let's pick back up. When the person sent me that email, it really hit me what Mayor Oliver was saying to me. At its core, that COVID, getting past this, is not just about politics. It's more than politics. It's more than Republicans and Democrats. It's about people. And it's about leadership and effectively leading people past this evil of COVID. And that speaks volumes about Mayor Gilbert. He has an unselfish concern for mankind. And for him, it's not about politics. It doesn't matter whether you're Republican or Democrat. What matters is serving his constituents and serving his people. It's been an honor to work with him. And without further ado, I'd like to bring Mayor Gilbert to the podium.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say. First, let me just welcome you to Miami Gardens. You know, I think I'm mayor of Miami Gardens for like 14 more minutes or something. But it's always good to have people at St. Thomas in Miami Gardens because it's good to have St. Thomas in Miami Gardens. This is an extraordinary university with an extraordinary president, extraordinary faculty, and extraordinary student body. I know that. I did my first year of law school right here. I had my first mock trial right here in this courtroom. When I was walking up, I saw the classroom, and I remember, you know what? I remember when I was called on in that first classroom on the corner, I almost lost my mind. But I figured it out because the faculty here helped me figure it out. And that's what you all are doing for young people from around the world. You're helping them figure out not just how they become successful, but how they become transformative leaders for the entire country and for the entire world. You know, when Todd and Jose came up with the idea of this event, they said, well, do you think you could get people to come? And I said, I don't know. Well, you all, this is Senator Oscar Braynon. Come on in. They said, do you think you could get people to come on short notice? And I said, I don't know. But what I do know is I know some of the most extraordinary leaders in this community. And so when you start talking about, you know, Mayor Francis Suarez of the city of Miami, who from the very beginning has been a coalescing voice of cities and how cities address this issue, and Oscar Braynon and Shevrin Jones, he is the state senator right now. He's the state senator elect. From the state level, they've been fighting continuously to bring resources to this community to help us get testing. Our school superintendent, the best school superintendent in the entire country, Alberto Carvalho, who's addressing how you keep teachers and kids, and by its very nature of connection, that connection safe, all those people safe from COVID, by opening schools. He's doing that right now. You have two extraordinary members of the county commission who sat together and figured out how to manage and balance the contrasting needs of dealing with COVID, because we understand that it's a health and safety concern, but we also understand that we have to actually find a way to actually live in this new normal, not just live through this new normal. And last but not least, I believe that he's on Zoom, Mayor Carlos Jimenez, who has done a good job figuring out how to balance everything. And sometimes we do balancing and we do it like this, like it's one or two things. He's not balancing one or two things. He's balancing 1 or 2 million things, along with millions and millions of lives, livelihoods, and thousands of businesses. I welcome you all to this seminar, you know, because COVID is here. It's how we're going to deal with it. Mm-hmm. Now, the person that I'm charged with introducing is the person who actually came to me and talked about creating this institute, creating this center. But she said, you know what? There's an opportunity for us to be the thought leaders in this. We have the talent in this community. We have the talent in the school. We have the ability to shape not just how we get through COVID, but how we prepare for the next COVID, and how we prepare for the next hurricane, and how we help other people prepare, businesses and governments alike, for the disasters that befall them all over the country, all over the world. He is an extraordinary visionary. And I say the word visionary because sometimes people say vision and they think it's what you see. Visionaries don't see things. They don't. People who see. Visionaries see what's not there and they create. He's a visionary. He's the 10th president of St. Thomas University, President Dave Armstrong. You all give him a round of applause.
Welcome to St. Thomas University and the St. Thomas University College. That sign's going to be different. It's now a College of Law in our Moot courtroom. We have socially distanced guests here, and then we have very socially distanced guests virtually. So we welcome everyone here. It's a very exciting night for our Center for Pandemic Disaster and Quarantine Research. To have such distinguished guests, we can all learn about leadership in times of COVID. This is the genesis of the PDQ as a result of a discussion I had with an alumnus, Vincent Hennessy, who is a retired executive of Exxon living in San Antonio. I called him to wish him a happy Easter. I thought it was going to be a 5-minute call. It ended up turning into an 1.5-hour call because it was right during the beginning of the hardcore of the pandemic. And we were talking about how there's no place to go to get unbiased information, data, so that leaders can make quality decisions. And so that seed that Vincent planted has turned into this center that is based on science, data analytics, and will help us make better decisions in health, business, government, and law. We thank Vincent. I hope he's online tonight. We thank him for his foresight and his personal support of the PDQ lecture series. We thank, obviously, our center's executive director, Mayor Gilbert, for organizing this event, along with STU faculty, PDQ co-chairs, law professor Todd Clark, and Gus Machado College of Business, Professor Jose Rocha. STU is a Catholic university with rich cultural and international diversity, committed to the academic and professional success of its students who go on to become ethical leaders in the global community. That is a very important statement at the end of our mission. And tonight, we have our local leaders who that in the thick of all the challenges, walk the walk. I always say the greatest compliment anyone can give me or I can give to anyone is that they don't just talk the talk, they walk the walk. These leaders walk the walk. And we're so proud to have them here. I am humbled and honored to have these leaders here tonight. And we look forward to a wonderful, wonderful discussion. God bless you all. Thanks, all of you, for being here.
What we're going to do here is, because many of you know who these individuals are, there was a lot of discussion. I think Mayor Gilbert did a wonderful job of giving you a little bit of background. So instead of doing an introduction, I'm going to pass with that and really get right into why we came here today. And so I'm going to begin with the first round of questions. And so what I would just like to tell all of you, when I ask this first question, you'll have three, each of you will be given 3 minutes to answer. I will stay very strict with that 3 minutes. I'll let you know when you have 30 seconds left, and then we must move on to the next person at the end of 3 minutes to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to speak. All right, so let's get started with the first question, and I'm going to start with you, Mayor Jimenez. So what has been your role in the current COVID-19 crisis? What did you do in this capacity, and what has been your proudest moment? And each of you will have an opportunity at 3 minutes. Mayor Jimenez.
My role has been and thank you for having this forum. And sorry, I'm a little bit informal, but I just came from campaigning. So my role in this in the pandemic has been to be the mayor of Miami-Dade County, the leader of this community, the leader of 2.8 million people. And making sure, as much to the degree possible, that we institute measures that protect the life and safety of our residents. And so when this pandemic started to hit back in March, we took some measures that some people criticized and then some people thought were fine, which were to first immediately close all of the senior centers. We knew that at that time that senior citizens were the most vulnerable in our community. We also instituted a program of feeding our most vulnerable, where we're the seniors, 3 meals a day to about 65 to 85,000 people every single day. They would get 3 meals a day. And so if I want to say, well, what are the things I'm most proud of? That's probably the things that I'm most proud of, and taking action right away to protect our seniors, taking action right away to provide them meals, especially when we had shut down the vast majority of Miami-Dade County. Only essential services were open at that time. That we protected those seniors by making sure that they could stay at home, stay protected, while we tried to tamp down the virus. And so, you know, I've issued a number of orders that are countywide in nature, always consulting with a group of medical experts from FIU, University of Miami, Jackson, UHealth, and others, so that we crafted these measures so that we could protect the greatest number of people here in Miami-Dade County. also as the mayor of Miami-Dade County, was the messaging that we embarked on day after day. Get a mask. You know, it's interesting. At the beginning, we said don't wear a mask because the CDC told us not to wear a mask, and then we changed to wearing a mask, and now the wearing of the mask is actually the most important thing that we can do. Keep our social distance, wash our hands, and so it was. It has been for the last 6 months a very challenging time, learning new things about COVID-19, taking more steps, allowing the county open up, having to close it, some of those things again, and then allowing the county to open up again, but always looking to do it in the safest way possible. It's really a juggling act. And so he asked me what my greatest, what I think was the greatest thing that we did was actually protecting our senior citizens. We had nowhere close to the fatality rate that we had, that you saw in New York City and New York, because we protected our seniors. We also learned from their mistakes that we didn't send our seniors back into nursing homes and all. And so I think we've done a really good job here, and my whole role here has been to be the leader of this community.
Thank you, Mayor Jimenez. Mayor Suarez?
I'm going to put my clock on. Don't worry about it. First of all, it's a huge honor to be here. It's such a prestigious university. I'm so thankful that we have such a dynamic president, a great executive director, a great vice president of admissions, great dean of the law school. So I think St. Thomas is on the up and up. And I spent first 30 seconds of my answer talking about that because I did a lot of the same things that the county mayor did at the city level. Obviously, we were the first city to cancel large events. We canceled Ultra and Calle Ocho, which was a very difficult event. Before, we had one case in the city of Miami. And we were criticized for that as well. And we were one of the first cities to implement, we were the first city to implement a mask in public rule. I was proud to coalesce a lot of the cities in Miami-Dade County behind some of the regulations that we were implementing far ahead of others. And also, working with the cities to try to get a fair share of CARES Act funding, which unfortunately was not filtering down to the cities, which would have ultimately benefited our residents in a greater fashion. So those are some of the things that we did. Obviously, we had to make some very tough choices with this pandemic. It is at many times and in many circumstances almost a lose-lose. On the one hand, you want to provide as much safety and security and health for your residents. On the other hand, you have an economy that has been devastated. And I often, I'm on weekly meetings with the National Coronavirus Task Force, Dr. Birx, Fauci, Redfield, who's the director, and Adams, who's the Surgeon General, along with the county mayor. And I'm also on local coronavirus task force meetings with multiple biostatisticians, epidemiologists, et cetera. But what often doesn't get represented is the other side of the equation, which is, and I tell this to my good friend, Mayor Dan Gilbert from Miami Beach, which is the human suffering, the toll and human suffering that this has taken on the economics side of people. And so it's a very delicate balance to try to make decisions. There is no playbook. This was thrust upon all of us. I don't think any elected official in this room ever thought in a million years that they would be making a decision to close or open a business, or close or open a sector of the economy. That's just not anything that we ever envisioned. We want to be liked all the time. And in today's day and age, it becomes difficult when you have to make some very difficult leadership choices. So I'm proud of that. And I'm proud of the fact that we made some early decisions that probably saved a lot of lives. 247.
Thank you, Mayor Suarez. I like it. Love it. Let's see if you can beat that, Senator Braynon.
Thank you. For us in the legislature, it's a little different role. We're not executives, so we don't have, it'll be a little bit different. So for us, when we came home from session is right when the pandemic hit. As a matter of fact, we got back Monday, things started closing back Tuesday. The first thing that I think we did was we started trying to help citizens navigate through the unemployment system. I think we all learned that there were some holes there. And the first line was your state legislator. So as a senator of a large swath of Dade and Broward County, I ended up having to help citizens navigate that and try to fix as best I could with the executive branch how we get through this. The next thing we did was it's kind of similar in providing for that suffering that I think Mayor Suarez talked about was the something simple as food. Me and many of my colleagues started having these bi-weekly food giveaway. And because we're seen as the leaders in our communities, people look towards us for those. And we started having those. As a matter of fact, we're still having them. We had our first one the second week, the first week things closed. Myself and a few other state legislators had one right in the Golden Glade. The other thing that we've tried to do is be a source of information about what's happening, right? As the executive branches make the decisions, as legislators, we're out there trying to inform them of the mask orders, curfews, the different things that you heard the mayors talk about. So we're doing that, and we're still doing that to this day. The other thing that I think that we haven't done, but I hope that at some point the legislature does do, is talk about where funding goes and how we solve these problems and these holes that we'll hear people talk about as we move forward. And I think as the legislative body and body that deals with the money, I think that we will start to play more of a role in that. And my most proud thing was helping people get their unemployment insurance.
Thank you very much. Superintendent Carvalho.
So number one, let me begin by thanking the president of this great university and leadership and the individuals here on stage for this important convening and conversation. Look, I think that this has not been an easy time for anyone in this community, in this state, or in this country, quite frankly, globally. From the disbelief of some to the unwarranted criticism of others, a departure from rational thinking and medical advice have disappointed many of us, including myself. But my role has been of superintendent. And as superintendent, my role is to educate, regardless of conditions, regardless of zip code of birth, regardless of socioeconomic conditions, regardless of how connected a family or a child was prior to this crisis, was ensuring that as we navigated this difficult time in our community, we accelerated access and equity for every single kid, particularly the most fragile were at greatest risk. We all know that many kids and families in our community live and go through opportunity gaps, many of them dark and deep, then move on to academic gaps, and those academic gaps, if not mitigated, become lifelong economic gaps. Simply said, if you were born poor in this community, more than likely, you will have poor children who will give birth to poor children. That is not acceptable. And our recognition early on as a school system when we were confronting the COVID virus was that we cannot allow the hole of desperation to grow deeper for these families. That's why we provided continuity of learning online during the last quarter of last year. Very seamless transition. We trained teachers, we prepared the community through our Parent Academy, and we managed to do a lot more than that, and takes me to what my most proud moment has been. It's not been anything that I've done. It's quite frankly the resilience of 38,000 teachers, bus drivers, custodians, police officers, support staff, who relentlessly around the clock kept working, kept teaching, kept protecting. And also proud of the fact that, as it was mentioned, food insecurity is a serious problem in our community. 73% of our kids live at or below the poverty level. And since March, when we first shut down schools, we served in excess of 8 million meals to children in need in our community, in addition to about 120,000 hot cooked meals by about 50 restaurants in our community. So that's just a snapshot of what the journey has been.
Thank you very much. Representative Jones.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you for convening this amazing panel of individuals. I think the one consensus that you will hear from every last one of us is the fact that all of us help people, because we knew that that was the time of need, and this was the one time that we should have, and I know the people at this table did, where you put political differences aside, because the consensus was that people were in need of help. Senator Braynon made it very clear that when we came back from Tallahassee from session, we went right into the mode of what is it that we need to do right now to help people. It was unemployment. It was food. And then to take it a step further, there was one thing that we knew that we had to figure out how we were going to help, and that was our small businesses. Because a lot of these small businesses begin to panic, especially if you look at Miami Gardens, you look at West Park, you look at Miramar, and a lot of these communities of individuals who sit here, who represent these areas, a lot of these owners, they want to know, how am I going to survive during this time? And even when PPP dollars went out the door and they weren't receiving them, the one thing is clear is that they were calling our offices and asking, how do we get access to these dollars to ensure that I can make sure that the individual who works in my office have it? And so one of the proudest moments that I'm happy that my office was able to do, in tandem with Senator Braynon's office and other legislators, was making sure that those dollars actually reach into the households and reached into the businesses of some of these businesses. Did it reach all of them? It did not. And so the clear thing that we are sure of is that when I do go back to Tallahassee, it's too bad Senator Brayon's not going back with me in a few months. But when I do go back, the one conversation we are going to have to figure out is, how do we make sure that those small businesses, how do we ensure that our cities and our counties have what's needed in order for them that we can become viable again and deal with this pandemic head on. I'm grateful for our superintendent for the work that he has done with our students, and he deserves to be recognized for the work that he's done and those things that come from Tallahassee and what needs to happen for our students, which was another thing that needed to happen because our parents were confused on what was happening. But a lot of good leadership came from our school board, which centralized a lot of those things, what happened. So when it comes to me, it was that. It was the proudest moment was ensuring that our small businesses were taken care of.
Thank you very much. Leviene-Cava.
Well, thank you very much as well. It's great to be in this beautiful setting with all of you, and it's really very refreshing to see a group of people here instead of being on a Zoom call. It was really very nice to be here in person, so properly masked and taking precautions. So this incredibly important conversation, and I thank Mayor Gilbert for making sure that we were here today as well, is something that is unfortunately ongoing. The virus is still with us, so we can look back and we could say, how did we handle it at the outset? And we also have to continue into the future, because until we have a cure, we are going to, I believe the mayor said it, we are going to live in the coronavirus era. So initially, there was denial at the national level, there was slow response at the state level, and the county had to step up. And the commission was not even meeting. The decisions were being made initially through Mayor Carlos Jimenez's office, and we subsequently were ratifying actions that were done in the back of our participation. And it was very hard to get the necessary testing. Remember, it was 65 plus with symptoms that originally had access to the tests. We were not doing any contact tracing. We did not have places for people to safely isolate. Those were the three critical components that the CDC and the White House were recommending that we do. Yes, we started in with the food relief, thank goodness, and we did that without knowledge that there would be CARES Act funding, $500 million coming to us that we subsequently were able to program.
Okay, I'll have that.
To assist people with unemployment when it's so difficult. Was that the case? Our county staff stepped up. Had parks.
Yeah.
We wanted people eventually to go to the parks. We had people.
I didn't talk to him.
County take a shot with this pandemic. Right now, as we've reopened the economy, we're seeing an increase in cases. Of course, we all have to be extremely vigilant, continue to use all these precautions. And even now we have testing readily available. We want people to get tested, and we need people to follow through with the contact tracing. Unfortunately, we've heard as many as half of the people are not accepting those phone calls. So we need to be vigilant to be able to tamp down. We have 3,000 evictions in the pipeline when the moratorium is lifted, and so many fighting mortgage foreclosures, inability to pay their rent, both businesses and individuals. We have over 100,000 businesses that have suffered as a result of this pandemic. So as we look forward, we have to be sure to continue to preserve our health as well as our economy, our lives and our livelihood. And these things go together. We cannot have one without the other. So we'll continue to fight for the right path forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Leviene-Cava. Thank you. Commissioner Bovo?
Thank you. And I'll put on a timer so that I try to be generous with the time because I know it's limited. And my money has come to this university. So of course I have to love the university. My son graduated from law school here. We're living through something that there's no rule book, there's no manual, nothing has been written. It's actually being written as we speak. So for me, I cast no criticism to what has been done. What has been done has been a reaction of what medical experts have dictated. What all we could do is now react to the outcome of what's going on. The mayor stated earlier about the issues of our economy. We need to understand that the reactions of government, local government, for the first time has been felt on many levels where we have reached in, literally reached into businesses and have halted economic activity. And then there's a ripple effect that comes with it. Many folks that I represent in the adjacent district to where we're sitting now have gone 6-7 months without work. And that is critical. And that causes a reaction on our part to make sure that we could work together with them. And I would pose the question long-term is that if we're going to live with this pandemic for the next 6 months, 2 years, 3 years, how are we going to live? And I would submit to you that expecting that the federal government sends, bi-monthly checks to us is probably foolish and unsustainable. We're going to have to work in a way that not only merges and involves businesses in ways that they could protect their employees and their clients, and at the same time, have us provide that enforceability that we could move our economy forward. Because there are, as the mayor earlier said, also was a ripple effect of what's going on where there are people suffering greatly. We've had an uptick on our suicide hotlines. We've had uptick on domestic violence calls. The stress level and mental health fatigue on our system that are being felt by those that cannot bring income to the table is paramount. So I would tell you that the challenges are going to continue, and we're going to have to stay always as fluid as possible as we deal with the pandemic. For my part, and I think my colleague had described the role of the legislature in county government was to be basically on the sidelines. However, what we did in my end was that we got a testing site immediately at Amelia Earhart Park. And I also collaborated with former Senator Rene Garcia to make sure that we were participants in getting information to our residents as quickly as possible, and then collaborate with businesses, even at that point, to figure out ways, how would we be able to navigate once our economy started getting up and open. So again, I want to thank all of you for being here today. This is an important conversation that I believe is going to be ongoing for the next couple of months, if not years.
Thank you. So now let's move on to our second round of questioning. We're going to start again with Mayor Jimenez. And so moving from the past, let's talk about the present, right? What are some of the concerns that we need to address right now? And what are some of the strategies to address them that are present right now due to COVID? Mayor Jimenez?
The concerns are that we may have a second spike and a second wave, and that's not it's not just me talking. This is the experts that I've spoken to here at the local level, but also every week myself and Mayor Suarez speak to the task force, the COVID task force from the White House. They're also expecting a second spike, and so we're seeing a little uptick in the number of hospitalizations, and we're seeing a little uptick in the number of people that are in ventilators, et cetera. And so right now we're looking at it to see if in fact this second wave is coming. The experts predicted it'll be in here in the middle to late of November. And so what are the things that we can do? There's been talk about lifting the curfew, and right now I don't think that's the right move. I'm not going to do it until we are assured that we have cleared this hurdle and try to keep this contagion as low as possible. I see now, I'm looking at my Twitter and there's a big Halloween thing going on in the city of Miami that they're going to go from 8 to 8. And, I hope that the city of Miami enforces the curfew. If not, then I guess we're going to have to do it. Because we know that these kind of events are super spreader events and we need to limit that. So for now, the message is going to remain the same. It's all up to us to try to keep this contagion down. It's up to us to keep our mask on. It's up to us to keep our distance. It's up to us to try to limit social gatherings as much as possible. And I understand very much what people are saying about the economy, and most of the economy is open right now. And actually, frankly, it appears that we can live with the rules that we have set in place and have an economy that's open. Now, there may be some businesses that may not be able to be open. If they're open past midnight, et cetera, they can't be. But, that's in court. That'll be settled in court in one way or the other. But we feel that the measures that we've taken and the messages that we've given are what the people have to abide by. And hopefully they will cooperate in keeping, this contagion down. And hopefully we can keep this second wave, if it comes, to as low level as possible, because we want to save as many lives as possible. And so that's the fear that I have right now, and it's immediate. And these are the measures that we have to take right now in order to avert a large second wave.
Thank you, Mayor Jimenez. Mayor Suarez?
Thank you. And I apologize, I have to leave a little early today. So for the interns that are here and students, be happy to have you working in my office. We always love to have people come and build their resume on the city of Miami's back. And so you can reach me at fsuarez@miamigov.com. Very easy to find me. Send me an email and we'll facilitate that. I think one of the things that's been so confusing for people is the differentiation of governments, right? And how different governments interact and play a role in this enforcement. So right now we are operating under a governor's order, and the governor's order has essentially said that you cannot close any business for COVID-related reasons. We may like the order, we may not like the order, but the order stands. And it's created a couple of things which have made it a little bit less, or a little bit more difficult for cities to impose rules that they may believe are effective at reducing COVID in the community. One of them, of course, the county mayor just mentioned, which is the curfew, which right now is being litigated. A judge determined that the curfew is a violation of the governor's order. That's on appeal by the county, and it's also the county appellate court stayed the implementation of the judge's order. So it's a little bit confusing as to what is in effect. One of the things that I did as mayor, and Mayor Gilbert sort of alluded to it, was I brought a coalition of cities to lead the way in implementing a mask in public rule. I see all of you are wearing masks here. I'm not wearing one because I'm more than 10 feet away, which is what the rule is from the adjacent person. And I'm speaking into a microphone. But, that was, I think, the largest contributing factor to reducing the COVID spread from 3,500 new cases a day to under 500 new cases a day, and the positivity rate from 21% to under 5%. And again, I like to quote my good friend Dan Gilbert, and the reason why I do is because I'm reminded of a quote from Mayor Bill Peduto from Pittsburgh, that right now in America, there's three political parties. There's Republicans, there's Democrats, and there's mayors. And so I often cite him because he happens to be a Democrat, I happen to be a Republican. But he said that the masks are the single biggest tool that we have to allow us to combat the spread of COVID while at the same time maintaining the economy open. And I think that's the balance that we're trying to find. And so we were able to find people when they weren't wearing masks, and we're not able to do that quite the same way. And so that to me has been a little bit of a hindrance, and something that I'd like to be able to reimpose if there is this potential spike. 2 seconds left.
Thank you very much.
I yield the balance of my time.
Now, I'm adjusting just a little bit because I do know that Mayor Jimenez and Mayor Suarez are leaving at 7:45, so they will not participate in the last round, so they won't get another 3 minutes. But is there anything that Mayor Jimenez, and I'll start with you since we began with you, I'll give you 1 minute to do a wrap up or make a final comment.
Does that mean 3?
No, just
Oh,
one.
this one.
Just 1 minute. And Mayor Suarez.
No, right now, as Mayor Suarez says, some of our abilities have been basically eliminated because of the governor's order. We're able to work with the governor's order, and the one thing we disagree with the court is that the curfew we think is legal, and that's why it's under appeal right now. There is a stay right now, so the curfew is still in effect. And so, look, for the future, I agree with Commissioner Bovo. We're going to be in this for a while. All of us have to have the same message. We need to wear our masks. We need to keep our distance. We need to wash our hands. And by the way, not only that will that allow us to keep our positivity rates down for COVID-19, but it'll also allow us to have a low flu season too. Because the last thing we want to do is inundate our hospitals with both COVID patients and flu patients at the same time. And so I feel confident. I'm very proud of what we've done here in Miami-Dade County. And I'm very proud of the vast majority of the people of Miami-Dade County that have taken our precautions seriously and taken this virus very seriously and comply with the what we're asking them to do. And that's what we need to do. At the end of the day, it's going to be up to us to do what we have to do. Thank you very much. You all have a good one.
Mayor Suarez, please.
Todd, you could have been the moderator for the presidential debates. I would basically echo everything the county mayor said. I don't have much more to add than that. I would just say that we're hopeful that this spike does not occur. Certainly, the flu season is a concern, and I do think the masks have helped during flu season as well. And I think we have to continue to communicate and collaborate. I mean, I've had a wonderful relationship with everybody who's on this panel. This is an incredible panel of wonderful public servants, and we have a great relationship, and we're accessible to each other. And so, as I think some of the panel members alluded to, these are not easy decisions. If they were easy, anybody could do them. And somebody was telling me the other day, I think it was President Obama, said that once a decision comes to our desk, a lot of smart people have tried to solve it before it gets to us. So that means it's not a good decision to make. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
One-on-one. There you go.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Senator Brayton, just as a quick reminder, the sort of current climate, present issues in COVID.
That was your question?
Yeah, the essence of it.
So I guess, what I would hope, and I think it was that, what do we see going forward, right? What is the present, right?
Yes, the present.
And for me, I think one of the biggest things is government should never be a hindrance to us getting out of this situation, right? Whether it's the argument that government can't close every business, whether it's the argument that one government is stopping another government from doing what they need to do to get out of this. I started in city government, and that's considered, most people consider that the closest government to the people, right? The closest government to understanding what's going on. We here in Miami-Dade County or the city of Miami may have a different situation than Lakeland, right? Or may have a different situation in Haines City. And so sometimes when I hear some of the things that are happening from the governor, I would just hope that he understands that sometimes an urban area may have where people live on top of each other, or where there are people, you can't socially distance. When you go to most things, it becomes hard that they don't hinder another government from trying to make decisions to help them get out of this. Because what's happening now, in my opinion, is, and I think in honesty, is we may have to suffer a little now to get out of this in the long run. And sometimes that's a lesson that I'm having to teach my little kids. You have to suffer a little bit now so that we're good in the long run. So it may hurt right now, but we're doing this so that we're better in the long run. And I think if we all understand that, we can move forward in a better way.
Thank you very much. Superintendent Carvalho.
So let me go directly to some of the top priorities that we are embracing right now on the basis of some of the biggest risks that young people face in our community today. Number one, the fact that the last quarter of last year was significantly disrupted. We were the first district to shut down schools. The fact that a lot of kids in our community and across the state and the country automatically became unengaged because they lacked connectivity or they lacked access to digital resources. That's our number one priority to fix, is that we need to recognize that that disrupted last quarter, compounded by a summer regression, meaning the learning loss that kids go through every single summer, compounded by a different opening of schools this year across the country, mainly online, and now we transitioned into the schoolhouse for 50% of the students. That has caused disruption. There are many working families that, quite frankly, had to make a choice of keeping their older children at home to care for the younger children, which does not make for an adequate or effective learning environment, even if they have a computer and they're connected to Wi-Fi. So that's a problem we need to solve. Secondly, the attendance issue. There is an attendance issue in this community across the country. There are literally missing pre-K and kindergarten kids that just did not enroll in school by the thousands. There's a loss of students in Miami-Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, in most large school systems across the country. And in many instances, the most fragile communities, they are unaccounted for, unengaged, and we need to do a better job, not just as educators, but as communities, in doing the wellness checks to really understand what their condition is and bring them back in. The third element is really to prepare for the next wave, as both mayors actually spoke about. Now, the preparedness level for me is slightly different, is to maximize the teaching potential, to ensure that we have the tools and the skill set to manage far better than we have done in the past, to ensure that if in fact we have to default back to the worst case scenario, which is a shutdown of schools, partial or a whole system, we are more ready for it than we've ever been before. And lastly is really sensitize our community that those children, as I said earlier, that there are many children in our community who prior to the COVID crisis were already in crisis. And fools are we all if we do not recognize that and take advantage of our learning process through this tragedy to improve the delivery of services and support to kids and adults in our community.
Thank you very much. Representative Jones.
Thank you. So the first thing I think that as we move forward, the one thing that I hope that we would begin doing, and I'll talk from the state perspective, and that is us being more responsible in how we are handling the pandemic. And that even goes from, and I'm speaking from the perspective of the governor's office, because the governor has all the tools in the toolbox to make sure that the 21 million people here within the state of Florida can at least feel as if the state of Florida is moving in a direction to making sure that them and their families are safe. That is going to require us to, one, to listen to the science in all of this, regardless of what your idea of if you think is right or wrong. Scientists are scientists for a reason. My degree is in biochemistry and molecular biology, and so one thing I am sure of is that science is real, and we wouldn't be here if not for it, right? And so we need to make sure that we're looking at it from that perspective. Yeah, I also believe that as we're moving forward in how do we handle this pandemic in the right way, and as far as in the present and in the future, I believe that we're going to have to begin communicating. I'll go back to something I said in the beginning, that this is the time that we're going to have to sit our differences aside, because it's really not the time for it. Because the average person, the individuals who are sitting out in their audience right now, or their family members, they can care less about what our differences are politically. What they want to know is, what are you all going to do to bring some type of sense of normalcy back to what we're dealing with right now? And the last thing I believe that we're going to have to do is, we're going to have to give the people the confidence in that we are really working towards something. If not, all we're going to continue seeing is a constant news cycle of what COVID is and what's not happening in leadership.
Thank you very much. Commissioner.
Well, thank you. So I've been saying we need a chief medical officer. I plan to appoint one so that we are constantly advised with the science, with the facts. Nice to know your background, sir. monitoring the hospitalization rate, the PPE levels available in the public and private sectors, any other data points that will help us to move forward. Learning, hopefully through contact tracing, where the outbreaks are so we can tamp them down, and basically doing everything we can to ward off our hospital system being overwhelmed, our healthcare system, as it nearly was in our first big surge. And we also have to have a very clear shared message. Recently, Mayor Jimenez made the point to us that during this election season, it's very hard to get TV time. I can understand that. And it's hard, therefore, to have really that shared public awareness campaign that we truly need to have. And that would be across the county, the cities, the agencies, the private sector, which I believe in Broward County has been one of the bases for their success, that they really engage the private sector in a shared common messaging campaign about the precautions. And then finally, we need to have a range of local economic recovery programs as we've been able to design with our Federal CARES Act dollars. Everything from veterans support to hospitality, nonprofit, arts and culture, rental assistance, mortgage assistance, taxi cab assistance, every possible kind of program, and then working together with the cities that design their own innovative programs as well. And we need to maintain those as we continue also to look for ways to rebuild our businesses and bring in new infrastructure projects to spur the economy.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Bovo?
So I said earlier that we're going to have to face the fact that we're going to be living with this for a while. And already we're getting messages of an uptick in cases and a second wave, a third wave, however you want to describe it. The challenge is going to be is how do we respond to that, and how can we continue to navigate through it? I will tell you categorically, if the thought process is to shut everything down again, there are people in our community, many people in our community, who are just not going to comply. You know, there is a level of frustration. Now, one of the things that I would propose is understanding that there's a delicate dance between our school system and our ability to continue our economy and deal with the pandemic, is that we're going to have to create parameters where even if we have to put a decal on businesses' door that describes if they're COVID compliant or a level of COVID compliant, then so be it. But we're going to have to figure out in ways that not only does people continue to work, people continue to live their lives, and at the same time, navigate this pandemic. But if the idea is to shut it all down again, if the idea is to then turn to the federal government, I want to remind all of you that are law students, you'll be paying for this debt for a long, long time. My child will be paying for this debt for a long time. And the grandchildren I don't have will be paying for this debt in a long, long time. So if this is a challenge of our generation, then we better step up and figure out ways to do it where we're not saddling future generations with the debt that will just collapse us. And I'm sorry, I had made note that I needed to leave at 8 o'clock, so.
You did. So what we'll do is we're going to just reverse it. We'll start with you on this last question, if you'd like to answer the last question.
Yeah, that's fine.
So instead of having a discussion about the future of COVID, because I think each of you specifically hit on that, let me ask you this question. What is it that your constituents, what is it that the people can do that you lead to help us through this COVID crisis beyond mere compliance with the rules and regulations?
Well, I would tell you that what I have found in District 13 and beyond is that business owners want to be consulted with on how best to keep their employees and their customers safe. They want to be involved in that conversation, not let government, which I want to remind many of you that many of the folks that make decisions in government have never had real jobs or ran a business before. So they're making decisions based on what they think is the right thing to do without a collaboration with businesses where they could also be at the table to describe or at least implement plans, collaborate with them. And then the other thing I would tell you is that long-term, we're going to need to invest in a promotional campaign that speaks to that Miami-Dade County is open for business again once we have at least created the parameters. Similar to what happened after 9/11 in New York, where Mayor Giuliani had to go out at that moment and promote New York Open for Business. We're going to need to do the same, because I need you to understand that our tourism industry has been wrecked, and we have lived off tourism for a long, long time. And we can't just put that and sweep it under the rug. I represent, again, many folks that work in the hotel industry, have not worked in a long period of time. And I think they need to get back to work as quickly as possible. Obviously, when we do it in a very safe manner, but collaboration is very key.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Leviene-Cava?
Yes, thank you so much. I also, unfortunately, I'm going to have to step out in just a minute. But I do want to say that it's really critical that we support our businesses to be nimble and all right. Support our businesses to be nimble and innovative as they have been. For example, businesses are now outdoors more so, enjoying the fresh air. So much tenting, opening of streets to business, all of that. And we need to do everything we can to support that. As far as promotion, that we're ready and open for business, we have a campaign that's been designed by Convention and Visitors Bureau that is even bigger than our tourism industry. It's to live, work, and play here. And I guess it's somewhat successful because we've been, for example, bringing in new financial services firms to some great acclaim, like Blackstone, that is relocated from New York with 200 very well-paid tech jobs. So we need to continue to court businesses that want to be out of some of the bigger cities and come down to our local paradise. And I'd say also work with our universities to help our students to be prepared for these new realities. And recently we awarded a grant to St. Thomas to do exactly that. To be part of the research for change around this pandemic. And hopefully that will include preparation for the jobs of the future. So I am very grateful for this opportunity. I'm going to sneak out as well. And to my colleagues who are doing so much, thank you.
Thank you very much for attending. Thank you.
Thank you. So you asked, like, what does our district need right now? Currently, I represent House District 101, which is a very diverse district. But in a few days, I will represent Senate District 35, which Senator Braynon is representing now and has represented with such grace, which is the largest African-American district in the state of Florida. And when you look at the needs of District 101 that spills over into District 35, people are still dealing with unemployment. That's what's happening right now. My legislative aide, Marina, who's here, and she can tell you, there is not a day go by that our emails are still not blowing up because people are still looking for whether it's back pay, whether it's figuring out how do they get their dollars. And so right now, it will continue to be the unemployment issue that my district is dealing with right now. And along with that, the small businesses, they are still asking for dollars. Broward County just put something out that they are releasing, I can't remember the amount, but a great deal of dollars for small businesses starting on November 9th to the 16th for people to be able to get small business grants. That's what's needed right now. People want to figure out, how do I get back on my feet? Families are going to want to know, they still want to know, what do I do to make sure I'm able to feed my family? So we will continue to do that. And people want, and the things that already happening on Mondays that Senator Braynon has continued to do, and that is feeding families. That's what people want right now.
Thank you very much. Superintendent?
We don't have to go anywhere.
That's great.
We're good. Because I'm sure we have questions for you.
Actually, maybe we do, but looking at the future with short-term or long-term, I think we need to recognize one thing. Let's first take a rear-view mirror of where we've been recently. And 2020 has been marked, in my opinion, by three significant events. One, obviously, a health crisis that continues to affect us. Secondly, a social justice crisis that continues to impact all of us, to be now followed by probably one of the most dramatic, most impactful economic recessions in our history. And so taking those three elements and considering those three factors, looking forward, as a superintendent, we need to consider, number one, the economic possibilities of difficulty that we will face should federal and state entities not live up to the full potential that they should live up to in terms of protecting K-12 education and higher education for that matter. I am a recession superintendent. I remember what it was like back in 2008, 2009, when we had to cut about $2 billion from our budget. As a matter of comparison, back in 2008, 2009, by this time, we had already received 10 times the level of federal appropriation to safeguard public education than we have received thus far under federal appropriations. We need to be mindful of that. Secondly, we need to be mindful of the fact, as I said earlier, that those kids, particularly the most fragile kids, and let me tell you who they are: Black and brown kids, poor kids, students with disabilities, English language learners, those who have lost the most in terms of a learning regression. If we do not do something about it, and we are, they will hardly recover in time. Just think about that. If you're an 11th grader, 12th grader, and you missed out on all these opportunities, if we do not catch you up, if we do not mitigate this academic regression, what should we expect from thousands upon thousands, millions across the country? So we need to do a better job, accelerate the mitigation of the academic regression that we have seen. And lastly, I believe that we need to understand that fundamentally, public education is the bedrock of democracy in this country. So we need to do all that we can, beginning with this Tuesday, in casting a vote and asking people about the one element that nobody really has talked about during this campaign season, which has been education. I have not heard it out of anybody's mouth. And the future of our nation resides with the young people who are in school and colleges and universities today, and they cannot be treated with silence. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
You know, I really wanted us to keep going this way because I never wanted to follow him. But you know, I heard us talk about businesses. I heard us talk about government, but the people that live, there are people that live in my district, right? And those people are suffering immeasurably. And they're suffering, and we talk about the economic hardship, but we have a health hardship that's happening right now. There are, you know, my sister's neighbor passed away from COVID. I have a friend whose aunt passed away from COVID. And I'm not talking about got COVID and got sick, they died. There are people getting extremely sick, and not to mention the long-term ramifications that we don't even truly understand about COVID. And I think that sometimes as we get lost in a discussion of where do we go next, we miss what some people are dealing with right now. And not only that, how harsh it may be going forward. I've heard that we're going to have a vaccine, but in the meantime, and there's a person on your school board that represents our area that keeps saying that in the meantime, there is a health crisis of epic proportion going on. And you hear people talk about, well, if you have these certain conditions, then you're predisposed to get even more sick, like you're not going to be immune like the president was. And in my district, which is one of the largest African-American Black districts is the largest African-American Black district, we have those pre-existing conditions. So therefore it's hitting us harder. And so while all of the things that they talked about are hitting it, I didn't hear us talk about, no one mentioned that. And that's one of the things that I am most concerned about as we move forward.
Thank you very much. Let me turn it out to the audience to see if anyone has questions that they would like. Mr. President.
So, Superintendent Carvalho, thanks so much for being here. And I call you Superman, superintendents. And just did a wonderful job this year. Information to actually tell all our else like that is some of the statistics that you've had to overcome in the district. So in our district, Miami-Dade, how many students did not have access to internet and computers? And then the steps that you took to try and overcome that challenge. And then what do you think is going to be the result of that, of what we couldn't get to and what we did get to?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So, if you go back to January, which was when we first started considering the imminent threat of COVID-19, just by reading what was happening in China, and we began preparing for what eventually was the shutdown of our school system, we put it on the board. So what are the existentially important needs that our students and families would have? And Mr. President, as you correctly said, connectivity was a major concern. Even before this crisis, I think everybody would agree that in this hyper-connected society of ours, the digitally disconnected is initially at an educational disadvantage over time, an economic deficit that really is debilitating. So we recognized that. We quickly inventoried our stock of resources, meaning mobile devices and hotspots. We surveyed our community of parents and students to determine what the need was. And immediately we put in massive purchase orders for devices. At the same time, we had the confidence that we had the devices that we needed to satisfy that immediate demand. Within a number of weeks, as we approached the shutdown in March, we distributed in excess of 120,000 portable devices and about 11,000 hotspots to provide connectivity to students. We were assisted by Comcast pro bono in providing connectivity for many of our students. But that was not enough because many kids in our community, the unengaged, because they do not have necessarily somebody on top of them. They have a parent or a mother, father who are working 2-3 jobs, or they are at home caring for kids because of the shutdown, creating a less than adequate learning environment. So we had to deal with that as well. The issue of food insecurity, the fact that we maintained 50 school sites open and kept preparing food for our students and their families, no questions asked, petitioning the federal government to provide us a waiver so that any child, any family would be able to pick up food at any school. This, in a time of crisis, religiously following rules does not make sense. And by the way, we need to address that again because a lot of these protections are about to come to an end. For example, the protection we currently benefit from in terms of a hold harmless as far as funding for public education may come to an end. Probably not before the election, because nothing bad happens before the election, but immediately after the election, that shoe may drop. It may dramatically impact the quality of education in communities across the state. But the logistics were huge. I think we are very well prepared now, even though we had a difficult start to this school year, having trusted a private sector entity to really provide what was described as a Cadillac of digital content. Didn't work. And you know what, in leadership for the students, be very proud of when you nail it, when you get it working well exactly the way you designed it, but also be humble enough in recognizing when something doesn't go right and learn from the mistake and be transparent and assume responsibility rather than blaming everybody else. So we've learned from that, we moved on, but we recognize that, I use the word fools referring to us if we don't learn from what we've gone through and really re-envision our healthcare system in a better way in light of this crisis, our response system as a country and as a local community, reinvent public education so that it relies less on mandated seat time, diversify choices for parents, meet students where they are rather than expecting them to come to you, teach them anytime, anywhere, 24/7 in whatever modality they learn best. And I think this crisis, this health crisis, taught us, in as much as we knew a lot, how little we really knew about the tragic condition of a lot of our kids. There are still right now probably 4,000 to 5,000 kids who may have a computer, have connectivity, but they are disengaged. So the resources alone are not enough. There still needs to be human will on top of the skill to reach out and connect with these kids and teach them for the long haul.
The questions, yes.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. And also, how do we help the students who have been stuck in homes where otherwise they would have had 8 hours away from, say, an abusive parent?
Right.
How do we get them back engaged in and that willpower that you speak of?
So very good question. I addressed it a little bit, but I'll expand on it a little bit more. The way to address the needs of those students is threefold. Number one, we need to know exactly who they are. We actually have metrics, we have dashboards that tell us who are the unengaged kids in our community. Secondly, we need to understand how much they lost in terms of learning potential and provide opportunities for them. We actually began that during the summer. We provided 2 summer sessions, virtual sessions. I believe actually the only school system in the state that did so using CARES Act money, federal funding, to stop the learning loss as it was happening and not allowing it to accelerate. We also have appropriated funding for every kid in every school, regardless of zip code, that has experienced this loss and provide additional support. That means before school, after school, additional support. That means summer academies. That means spring break academies to again contain, reduce the learning loss and accelerate them towards full potential. The other thing we've done and we'll continue to do is actually help parents of those children. Because a lot of times the learning loss and the learning potential impact to these children is not because these kids are any less intelligent than any other kid. That's a fallacy. It's not because they are not as eager and excited about learning. Sometimes the conditions are not there for them to learn. The parental support may not be there for the reasons that I described. So that's why we step in. There's a phrase in Latin called loco parentis. As educators, we are the surrogate parents for children under our care, and that means at school or at home. So one additional thing we will be doing is providing the equivalent of an individualized education plan for every one of those kids, because each one of them has lost at a different rate. Could be mathematics, could be reading, could be science, could be social studies, could be writing. So we need to reinvent ourselves to individualize and really cater the educational experience for each one of these kids if we are to not lose a single one. The last thing I will say is, we talked about technology, is really ensuring that beyond the school year, they continue to have access to these resources, because as the 2020 school year ends, the need won't stop. So we need to start looking at the continuity of school year for these kids, sort of year-round schooling for them, to ensure that they do not fall to the bottom. In fact, they continue to catapult ahead, because that's exactly what they need. Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? We have time for one more question. Don't be shy. One more question. All right, since we have no more questions, what I'd like to do is, Superintendent Carvalho has done such a wonderful job of answering the extra questions we had. I would like to give Senator Braynon and Representative Jones an opportunity to kind of close out, add anything else to the discussion that you believe is important.
I'll go first, Shevrin. Thank you. I think that, what this country looks like and what this county looks like after November 3rd is going to be different, right? Everyone has their own image of what it is. But what I hope that happens, no matter who wins, is that we're heading towards what we all consider a safe place to live. And I hope that we are able to come together and formulate what that is for everyone. I do believe in the things that the doctors are talking about, the mask, the social distancing. And I do believe all those things will lead us to a point where we no longer have to have it. And if you're one of the people that feel like the mask is too restrictive to me, I really want to, give you a hand, a dap and a hug. I really hope that those people can understand that if I stop that now, if I don't do those things now, if I wear a mask now, then that means sooner that I will never that I won't have to wear it anymore, that I won't have to I won't have to stay away from people. If we can all come to that conclusion, I believe everyone can be happy. I know that's a very utopian way of thinking, but it just seems so easy to me. And I hope that we get to that point and we're able to not have these problems. I am worried about something that the superintendent talked about. I was in the legislature during the Great Recession, and I know how much was cut, and I know how much the federal government had to put in there. And I know it wasn't just education we had to cut, it was everything. So as we look at what the future looks like, we have to understand that we're coming up on a huge budget deficit for every governmental entity. That's from your city to your state, to your school board, to your police and fire. All of those things are gonna have a huge budget deficit. And we need to start really thinking about what that looks like. And as we're closing, I wanna thank the university for having this. Thank you for inviting me, as I am almost has been, you started not robbery, to allow me to sit up here with the future of Miami-Dade County. And thank you for everything that you all have done. And I hope that you allow me to continue to be a part of this family.
I hope you allow me to live in your district. I mean, you sound like it's a wonderful place to live. It's great.
It is. You're in it right now. It is.
Thank you. So I wrote Senator Brayon's speech for him for his closing remarks. Yeah, all jokes aside, I'm actually going to miss Senator Braynon. He and I, as I take over his seat in the next coming weeks, truth be told, Senator Braynon is an amazing leader in Tallahassee. He has done great things. He's not only a good friend, so is Mayor Gilbert. He's also an amazing leader, so I really appreciate that. And also to Superintendent Carvalho, before I get to my comments, thank you for your leadership once again. Really thankful for you that you lead this county, especially with our most vulnerable, and that's our children. So I'll say this, June 26th of this year, I contracted COVID. And so why this conversation is so important to me is because I didn't think it was a hoax before I caught it. But I knew it became a much more of a real thing to me when I caught it. But it became even more real when my parents caught it, because I would have much rather my parents have the small effects and give me the big effects of COVID. But it was during that time that I felt the need to use model leadership to show, one, that it's not a hoax, but also to figure out how do you convey this message to the community of what we should be doing to ensure that we bring some type of resolve, quote unquote, to COVID, however that looks. So what the CDC had put out, masks, social distancing, I believed in that, right, after the fact. And so it is my hope that as we continue to move forward, that you look at individuals like myself who I had difficult days, in days maybe 5 through 9, to where I didn't believe I was going to make it through the night because I couldn't breathe and had to go to the hospital and had to take all of this medicine, the antibiotics. Yeah, but I was a lucky one. But there were 200,000 other people in the United States and 17,000 here within the state of Florida who their families are grieving, and they're looking for this type of leadership. And so that's why, if you all continue to hear me talking about the need for us to set political agendas aside, because I can tell you, when I was laying in that bed, I didn't care who the president was, I didn't care who the governor was. I just wanted to know, are we working on something to help heal me, right? And I know that that's the same thing that other people are looking for. So my hope is, as we're moving forward, and Senator Braynon said it best, we are going to go into some difficult times. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. But it's my hope that we make those decisions and we do it in honor of the people who have lost loved ones, and we do it the right way and lead with the light of love in all of it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Everybody, give a round of applause for our panelists. I'd like to bring Mayor Oliver Gilbert back up to close us out.
Thank you. You all give Todd a round of applause, please. He did a really great job, right? Thank you to all of them were my friends, but these are actually 3 of my very closest friends. Shevrin, well, we let him come too, but yeah. But
y'all see, we can leave. Yes, we still here.
He's the little brother. So listen, it occurred to me when I was sitting back there, and maybe it's because I was sitting behind the father, that the thing that kept ringing in my head was the part in the Bible verse, that it's a portion of James. And so I looked it up and it says, what does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, depart in peace, be warmed and filled, but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. We all have faith that we're going to get through this, because one thing we can be assured of is that tomorrow is undefeated. The future is literally undefeated. It's gonna come. The question is, will we actually put in the work? The work is seminars like this. Is the work of the PDQ. It's wearing masks. It's understanding that we are the masters of what tomorrow will bring in this way. We have the ability to wear masks. We have the ability to social distance. We have the ability to keep each other safe. Thank you all. I look forward to partnering with you and seeing you all as the PDQ moves forward. Thank you, President.